Pain, the wrong way to pronounce bread in French. French being the wrong way to pronounce both France and French. Inflicting pain on your characters is one of the most enjoyable parts of writing. Why does that not sound right? Invariably, your characters are going to encounter some kind of pain through resolving the central conflict of your story, either physical or emotional. Today, we're talking about the former rather than the latter. Although you can really hurt yourself with a ladder, so maybe we're talking about ladders too. Physical pain is the body's natural protective response to any sort of bodily threat, like paying $22 for a clamp. If we didn't have physical pain, we would do all kinds of crazy crap that would endanger us, we would not be in a position to procreate, and our genetic line would die out. I am aware that men do all kinds of crazy crap under the guise of being in a position to procreate, but that's what the law of large numbers is for. Pain is one of the most universal human experiences. Even my vast semiconductor-related wealth can't shield me from it, which is disappointing. I also still have to pay taxes. Save for a few folks with a rare genetic disorder called congenital insensitivity to pain, physical pain is something that everyone experiences at some point. This near universality means that how you describe pain in your writing needs to be on point, like the point of a spear or the corner of a Lego block.
Are they blocks or bricks? Because blocks don't have those little points on them.
They're not called points, they're called nubs.
Nub taken.
So with that, here are some tips for writing about physical pain. Sharp tip number 1, describe it well. It would be a shame for your protagonist to fall all the way through that pane of glass without the reader getting a proper understanding of what their pain felt like. This is an area where it's probably best to show rather than tell. Was it painful to hear that for the 100 millionth time? Showing how a character reacts to a certain painful stimulus is a good strategy here. Instead of describing how the character feels, show how they react. You can also vary the length of the description. Maybe the pain is so sudden and excruciating that it brings them completely to a stop and slows things right down, bringing the entire focus of the narrative onto the pain that the character is experiencing. Maybe the pain is really severe, but they don't have time to stop and think about it because they're being chased by a lion who will most certainly cause them more pain. You can go overboard here. Like any description, a description about pain can go on for too long. You get to a certain point where the reader's eyes glaze over, at which point they walk into a wall, which hurts. Tip number 2, beware the magnitude. In general, most stories ramp up in intensity as they go on. The problems the character faces become increasingly large in scale. First, maybe their home is threatened, then their neighborhood, then their local municipal authority, then their postal sort area or their education administration region, then their ceremonial administrative county, then their federal election riding, then the greater regional metropolitan area is at stake, then their consolidated interprovincial rural urban economic development unit/zone is at stake, then the whole country, then the continent, up to the point where the whole world is at stake. You get the idea. If you're putting your character through a lot of pain, this should probably ramp up through the course of the story. If fighting the first county-level villain hurts a lot, but then fighting the state-level villain at the end of the story hurts only a little, it's going to weaken both scenes. The impact of what you bring later in your story is going to be tempered by the impact of what happens early in the story. So if you're putting your character through excruciating pain early on, just recognize that the pain they feel later on is going to need to be more extreme. This may mean dialing back the descriptions early on, so to make sure there's a lot of build-up, and often means saving the most gruesome injuries until the end of the story. That's a great line to read with a lot of positive inflection. Because after these gruesome injuries, your characters may not want to do very much. Tip number 3, beware the consequences. We've all been there. You just watched a character go through hell that they barely walk away from, and then they walk away from it without any ill effects. Now, there's a bit of leeway here when it comes to the tone and genre of your story, like how car accidents cannot physically harm you if you're in a spy thriller. And like no one bats an eye when Sly Stallone gets pushed out of a 52-story window and then has a 52-story building fall on top of him. That's a different 52-story building. He'll limp a little bit, but only for a few steps. Afterwards, he'll be fine. Sometimes this works, sometimes it will break the reader's immersion, and you risk ruining the impact of the previous description of the painful event. Likewise, having a character suffer a gruesome injury and then just be like okay with it is also not great. Even if the entire world is at stake, they're going to be focused on the wound more than almost anything else if it's bad enough. If they've just been shot or stabbed or run over and they're casually chatting half a page later, then that's a problem. They need to go to a doctor. Adrenaline will not compensate when critical organs start failing. At least not for very long. Having other characters notice the injury and the severity of it can be a useful crutch if you don't want to break your hero's steadfast pursuit of their goal. It's like, sure, you were just bit by a dragon across the abdomen and I told you need to rest for a bit, but you've put your hand on your side where the bleeding is and picked up your sword and stormed off. You do you, Frank. You always want to be sure that there are consequences and that the characters in your story are reacting appropriately to the injuries they've just sustained or watched someone sustain. Making sure that the characters point out these things can be a good hedge against the readers losing immersion. One final note on this point, if the pain you're inflicting on a character is serious enough that they suffer permanent consequences from it, like not being able to walk or losing their vision, then you need to portray that correctly. This is an area where research into first-hand accounts or getting sensitivity readers can be really helpful. If nothing else, it will make your story more accurate because you're actually portraying it based on the experiences of people who have experienced what is happening to your characters. Just like I'm glad this video happened to you. That sounds kind of ominous. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video and found the advice in it useful. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can subscribe to my channel and check out all my other videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.